actually down economies are the best time to start a business because you're not competing against anybody, right? Because businesses actually slow down, cut back.
Mhm.
Also, like you said, you had the undivided attention because when it's a bad market, especially like if it's a pandemic, people are willing to change the way that they're thinking and think it through things in a non-traditional way.
Exactly.
So that gives you your foot in the door, right? And they're sitting there
Mhm.
thinking, and then you come out of the box and help this guy blow up his practice. If you're comfortable, you're not growing. Thank you for tuning in for another episode of Dental Marketing Theory, and we got a good one for you today. But before we jump into that, I need you to do something for me, and it's going to take you less than 1 second. Whatever you're listening on, just go press the button, either give it a thumbs up, even a thumbs down. I'll take a thumbs down from you. I'll take any interaction that you'll give me, or you can go leave us a quick review if you're listening on one of the podcast platforms. Just go do that for me really quick. We have thousands of listeners, and I only have like 50 reviews, and several of those are my family members. So please just go leave a quick review, and I'd really appreciate it. And today I have a special guest, Danya, and I want to get that right, and because I messed it up when I first met her, super embarrassing. And she's from DSO Success. They are a consultant group, and I want to dive into all of that. I want to talk about your business, how you got into the DSO world, all that kind of stuff. But before we do that, we're going to do a quick draft. And I just told her about this right now, and she's a good sport for doing this. And so we're going to do a draft on our favorite fall thing. So you get to get first pick, and you tell me what you think is the top fall draft pick.
Pumpkin spice lattes.
Stink. I was going to take that one. Okay, that's really good. Okay, mine is Thanksgiving.
Apple picking.
Ooh. Okay, do they do that down where you're at? Do they do a lot of apple orchards and stuff?
No.
No? You have to travel a little bit, huh?
Yes.
Apple picking. All right, apple picking. All right, I am going to go with Halloween.
I'm going to go with cemetery tours.
Oh, okay. I'll do haunted houses.
Raking leaves and jumping into a pile of them.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a sneaky 4th round pick right there. Okay, so mine is going to be pumpkin patches.
Dang.
That's a good one.
Oh, goodness. I have to trump you somehow.
This is your last pick. Make it a good one.
Friday night high school footballs.
Ooh, okay. That's a good one. I wouldn't have thought that one. That's big. I know that's bigger where you're at, right? That's really, really big.
Where
Okay.
I am.
Okay, this one is, I don't know if they do this everywhere, but where I'm at, they're everywhere. Corn mazes.
Oh, gosh. My daughter just went to one of those.
Okay, you do have them. Okay. That was fun. Good job on
Yes.
that. So why don't you tell us, now that we've broken the ice and we're all feeling good about each other now, tell us a little bit about your organization, what you guys do and who you do it for.
My organization, I just have to say, Gary, I'm working solo. So it's me, myself, and I over here. And so I feel like I'm doing the work of a whole organization, but it's just myself. So when you work with me, you get everything from me. And I'd love to be able to scale that in the future. That's where I'd like to go with my company. But
Awesome.
I want to call myself a baby business. I started in the middle of our pandemic. June 1st was the first day that I opened my company. And for 2 years, I worked. I know who starts a company in the middle of a pandemic. I'm not sure. Do you remember? The doctors weren't even really open to see patients back then.
It's true. Yep.
Because they were just doing hygiene, and they weren't even deemed essential back then by the government. So actually, it was a great time to start a company because I had the undivided attention from all of these doctors who had gone through all of their books, and they had looked at everything and had decided that, oh my gosh, I should be working on my business.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, I had a young associate doctor that I had worked with in the past, and he called me and he said, I have 6 locations. I've made a mess. How can you help me? And that is how DSO Success was born. We worked together for a year. He acquired about 4 more practices. We went from, let me look at my numbers so I don't tell you anything inaccurate. We went from 5 million to 7.4 million that year. And We put,
So how'd you do that? So walk me through. First of all, let me say this. Kudos for you
yeah.
to stepping out and starting the business during the pandemic. Actually, down economies are the best time to start a business because you're not competing against anybody, right? Because businesses actually slow down, cut back.
Mhm.
Also, like you said, you had the undivided attention because when it's a bad market, especially like if it's a pandemic, people are willing to change the way that they're thinking and think it through things in a non-traditional way.
Exactly.
So that gives you
hmm
your foot in the door, right? And they're sitting there
hmm
thinking, and then you come out of the box and help this guy blow up his practice. So how did you do that? What did you do that got him to see that kind of increase?
Well, first of all, I had a willing participant, which is always necessary. And second of all, he had his team on board, which if you can't get your team on board as a leader, then we're not going to go anywhere together. And third of all, I have operational knowledge because of this is my 30th year in dentistry. So
Hmm.
I have operational knowledge plus a foundation in finance. So there is, the ability to walk into a practice and not look for that low hanging fruit that these doctors who are very, very smart should have already found by themselves. But I can see the bigger picture where, okay, this practice is already at capacity. We need to add, more hygiene chairs, not just we need to add fluoride to our practice. So I'm looking at the larger picture where we need to add more hygiene days, or we need to, we can't even call hygiene patients because our schedule won't allow us to put patients into the practice. So we need to, maximize the entire operations.
Hmm.
And add chairs to the practice or expand and get another associate to the practice. So sometimes it's about adding providers, sometimes it's about getting another practice, buying another practice, expanding our organization, and looking at the utilization of codes and looking at our case acceptance. And whenever you combine a lot of these things together, these larger systems together, you see those large increases like that, those $1 million increases. And that's what they're really looking for in those DSOs. When you have an emerging DSO group like that, they're not looking for that 10% return. They're looking for those EBITDA, they're
Yeah.
looking for the EBITDA to move 10%.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah,
precisely
exactly.
what we did in this situation. I think his EBITDA increased from 21% to 40%, which
Woo.
is a
Okay,
big,
that's
big
amazing.
change.
So walk
hmm
me through, how do you know to go find these things, right? So you're looking at the big picture. You said you had some operational knowledge before. Where did you start to pick that up?
Well, when I was 15 years old, I was, brought into a dental practice, and they told me that, they asked me if I wanted to work in a dental practice. I wouldn't have to work nights or weekends, and I wouldn't have to smell like fried food. And to me, that was perfect. So at 15 years old, I was a sophomore in school. My junior year, I went to school for 2 years or for
Wow.
2 hours. And I would go to school from 10:30 to 6:30 every day. So that was basically me working a full-time job at, 16 years old. And I stayed in that practice for 16 years. So I didn't leave my high school job until I was 32 years old. When you stay in a job that long and you start learning everything about that job and that patient and that practice, and you start mastering dentistry whenever you're there that long. So I would say it was that first job that sucked me into dentistry,
Hmm.
and I learned as much as I could. And from that position, I began to grow exponentially after I left that practice, and I was in a few more offices. And I became just so involved in dentistry. This is my passion. It's all I
Yeah.
know, honestly. So
Yeah. So
it's
if I
been
was a dental
fantastic.
So if I was a dental practice, so that, first of all, that's amazing that you started that young and got an understanding of it. So if I was a DSO or I'm a group, let's say I have 5 practices, and I would say that's the bulk of our audience are like dental vendors, like people like yourself, and then also like 3 to 5 practices. So if I have 5 practices, how do you engage me initially? Like, how do you go through and start that process to see how you can help me increase my EBITDA?
That's a great question. So, the very first thing that I do is a discovery analysis with all of my onboarding clients or potential clients. I like to have a conversation with them and find out where they are now, find out where they want to go. And what I'll typically do is send a client scorecard to them and determine, let them rate themselves
Hmm.
and determine where they feel like they're performing well, where they're performing better, and where they want to go in the future. And then from that particular scorecard, I'll evaluate it and then invite them to have a conversation with me. And from there, we can usually use some of their answers from the scorecard to match with some of I call them 20 silver bullets.
Ooh,
And
I like
these
that.
silver bullets, yeah, some of these silver bullets are some of the essential processes that I use to coach these teams and bring up their knowledge. And the teams, you have to make it, you have to make the information that you're sharing with the teams very easy to learn, very quick to learn, and very easy to implement. And then you have to make it very easy to go back and hold them accountable for that information. And I find that the accountability is the most critical part of that. But the new doctor owners that I work with, when I start to lay out the foundation and the silver bullets, once we have an understanding of what it's going to take, we'll start to develop a strategic action plan from that. And we take our strategic action plan and we chunk it out by quarters and what we want to actually gain from working with each other, and put timelines to it and who's going to be responsible and so on and so forth. And from there we start developing how this is going to happen. How are we going to do this? And it's a lot of work. I tell you, it's a lot of work. But the one thing that I like from working with these multi-location specialists and doctors is that they are there to put in the work. They didn't get to where they are because they're lazy.
Yeah.
Yes. And they are there to work just as hard, if not harder than I am, for their practice.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what are some of the silver bullets, or give me the top, 20 silver bullets is a lot, but give me like the top ones right now that you're like, these are the ones that are knocking it out of the park.
Our solutions with revenue cycle management are definitely ones that you see a great return on investment from the beginning.
So walk me through, let's talk about that one. So like what's wrong with practices, the way that they're structured, and then what are you fixing on that front?
Well,
from revenue cycle management perspective.
Sure, of course. A lot of times with these emerging groups, the 1, 2, 3 location groups, when they start acquiring more locations, they don't know how to take the revenue cycle part of the dental practices and put it in a centralized location, or they don't know how to group it all together, or they're not certain if they should, put everything on one particular platform, one billing cycle, one billing section, and then how to make that work. Nobody, I tell you, nobody I've worked with has had a written 31, 61, 91 day protocol for how they work in their billing cycles. Nobody has had here's what we do whenever our insurance is outdated. It's typically, Mary just knows how to do it in her brain and she just works every day.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Mary works 24 hours a day. Yeah.
Yes. What happens when Mary decides that she wants to go work for ABC Dental instead of our dental?
Yeah.
So, your system walks right out the door. And I just really don't think that's a great policy. Mm-hmm. So we start to implement my policies in place. And now everybody has a black and white policy and we know how to follow the rules. And people love structure. Believe it or not, they love to know how to do things.
That's really good. And you know what? That's really true, because I'm going to speak as a business owner and I'm thinking in the shoes of the dentists themselves. So we run businesses, right? And you're running your business. And as you start to hire people, you have these people in these positions and things kind of work, right? And you're there and you're monitoring it, but we don't realize how much of it is actually not process driven. It's more people driven. And those people, especially now as you scale, it's so much more competitive. And these dental office employees have other options. They can go to other verticals. They could go work for a company like yours or a company like mine, or even outside of dental. There's tons of remote options now. And so you lose that team member, and then all of a sudden you see that you lack that process. And when you lack the process, that's when things start to fall apart. And for me personally, I've had people leave, different things like that. And I realized right away, stink, we needed a process there.
Yes.
And that all lands back on my lap if I don't have a process for that. So that's amazing that you're putting those processes in. What are some of the other silver bullets that you're seeing where it's just like, hey, this is one that we do every single time and it always has a huge return?
So scheduling is another one. You've been talking. I've been listening to you. You talk a lot about our Great Resignation, and all of our team members are coming and going like it's a revolving door, and that we can hire people from off the streets. But who's going to train them in all things dental?
Mm-hmm.
That's a big
Yep.
thing. And so I'm very particular about the way that we schedule, because if we don't have a particular scheduling pattern developed, and if we don't have, ways and strategic ways that we schedule
Yeah, because that's where all
together.
the money comes from, really, right? Like if you have
Exactly.
gaps or holes, or you're not stacking things properly to optimize, then
Exactly.
you're not.
Hmm.
You can have all the best marketing in the world. You can have the best dentist, the best hygienist. It doesn't matter because your schedule isn't set up to fully optimize your time.
That's right. You're a big proponent of this. I mean, you listen to phone calls all the time, and you know what it's like whenever you have team members up front that don't convert new patient phone calls. I'm sure it's extremely frustrating for you and for your team. And so, our groups can work hand in hand with that to make certain that things are always moving forward and that we have the best training available for our team. So that's another silver bullet that I'm just like, oh my gosh, guys, you're just not there yet
Yeah,
with
yeah,
this. We
I
can't
love that.
we can't turn our teams loose, or our businesses loose to young team members, new team members, new to dentistry, because they are in control of our whole entire organization.
Yeah, they
So,
really are. That front line, really,
mhm,
an office is made or broken by that front desk
mhm,
and how they do
mhm.
things. And a lot of times, that's the lowest paid position in the office. And people don't.
Right.
And this is the other thing that's interesting about the front desk in dental is that if you're good at the front desk, what happens? You get promoted like
That's
really quick.
right.
And if you're not good at the front desk, then you get let go. So it's the lowest paid position. It's the first
Mhm.
to get promoted if you're good at it, because we'll have you present treatment, we'll have you do the billing, we'll have you do all these other things besides the front
All
desk.
these other things.
Yeah,
That's
but
right.
that's the whole business pivots on the front desk. And so
Right.
it's so interesting to me from that perspective. The other thing that I've noticed too is that for new patients, the dental doesn't like the word sales. So dentists just stay away from the
Oh
word
my
sales.
gosh, it's just like the worst word you can say in
It is,
dentistry.
yeah. And so what's happened is that CRMs have not been created for dental because of that. And so
Why?
yeah, they're just not there, right?
I've always wondered that. I mean, the person, I can't do it because I'm just not that smart. I'm pretty techie, but I'm just not that smart, and I have other things to do. But please, can we ask somebody to put together a
We're
practice
we're
management
actually we're
software?
rolling we're rolling ours out. We already use it internally, but we're rolling it out next year because here's what happens. Let me just walk through this. New patient calls your office. They say, "Okay, yeah, we want to come." You put them on the schedule. They don't come. They might live in an email somewhere, or they might get texted from somewhere, maybe, right? And then they disappear. And they're never
Mhm.
actually in your PMS because your PMS is only set up for patients that come in. Here's the other problem. You have a patient come into the office, they actually get in your PMS, but they don't buy treatment for whatever reason, right? There's a bazillion reasons. Well, again, you have an email, you have a text, you have these kind of systems to be able to follow up, but those, they just kind of die and go away. If I said, how many patients who came into your office who wanted implants, who made it to the first appointment or made it to the second appointment, but then dropped off, do you have right now in the last 6 months? Like, you can't pull reports like that from the PMSs. They're not set up to do that. A CRM would take care of that. So you would be able to see how many
Yes.
people called our office but didn't schedule. Here's a whole list of all those people, and you could do it over any time period. How many of those people
Mhm.
scheduled but then didn't show up? You can have all those people. You can break it by new patient or existing patient. You can break it by marketing or patient referrals. Then you can go into which one showed up but didn't buy any treatment, and which one came to the second appointment but didn't buy any treatment, which ones, and then you could break that all by treatment as well in interest. So that's what's needed in the dental industry. And again, right now it's just
Absolutely.
managed in email. It's kind of ridiculous.
Yes, you're so right, and that has been needed for so long, because so many of our doctors, especially when we get to these larger DSO type levels, we're managing so much data, and we're using multiple different systems to do so. And the analytics that that I monitor on a daily basis, I only like to use one or two different types of softwares. But if we had one software that we could manage CRMs, it was some dental software CRM mecca that we could see everything that we needed to see. oh my gosh, we would
Yeah.
just have all of the answers,
There's
and
people
our
working on
teams
it, but
could be.
I don't think we'll ever get to like one thing for everything. It's kind of like your cell phone, right? So your cell phone's an operating system, but it doesn't have everything. It has apps that you integrate into it. So you have 100 apps or 200 apps, and it's very seamless for you, right? You know where your apps are. You store them in a certain way. That's what's going to happen in dental, I believe, is eventually you're going to have some people who try to do it all in one, but there's no such thing as a good company that is an all-in-one company in anything, not just in dental, but in anything.
Yeah.
So what will happen is you'll have somebody who will say, I'm basically going to build the app store for dental. And then they're going to start to be able to help you manage those different things. There's a couple people working on it. Tanner from Unify's working on that. And a couple, I talked to somebody yesterday, they're working on something similar. So it's going to happen. It's just a matter of if the PMSs are going to kind of, which PMSs are going to play ball. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
We know
so I was going to
is
ask you that.
not.
What's your favorite analytic platform?
Oh, goodness gracious. You put me on the spot here.
I'm going to ask you PMS next. Like what PMSs you like?
Well, I have to say, Practice by Numbers is one of my favorites because they have a lot of analytics that are out there. And there's a lot of information that you can gather from their analytics. And they can do a lot of things all in one. I like Jarvis as well, just because they're connected with Henry Schein, and you can see that there's a lot of great things going for them.
That's awesome. And then what about PMSs? Like if you had to pick, let me ask it this way. So you're starting a DSO. So I come to you and I'm like, hey, here's a check for $10 million. You can go start a DSO, start a group. I want you to scale it up over the next couple of years and get to as many practices as possible. We'll do GP. We'll do like super GP. So you're going to do implants and Invisalign and a couple other things as well. What PMS are you starting with?
My answer a couple of years ago would be Ascend. My answer today, I think, is going to be Curve, because it has your KPIs actually built into it. So you don't have to have a separate software for that. And you can build any report that you want to with it. And I used to say, when I started working with it on a daily basis, I used to say every day, I hate the software. But the more I work with it and the more I get training with it, the more I like it. Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Right? That's you surprised me with that answer. Now, Dentrix Ascend, I've heard is really good from the user standpoint, but from an integration standpoint, I absolutely hate Dentrix Ascend from our point of view. Yeah. So have you experienced that on your end where Dentrix Ascend doesn't play ball with maybe people you want to try to integrate into the PMS?
Yes, as well as Curve, because nobody works with Curve either. So, well, I shouldn't say no one. I could probably get some hate mail for that.
Yeah.
But the people that I want to work with Curve don't work with Curve. So,
yeah, exactly. That's what I've experienced as well. So, which is interesting because I think again, that's the future, right? So it makes it tricky to have what you need, but then also have the people partnering with you, because Curve or Dentrix Ascend isn't going to get you your marketing data. They're not going to get you your maybe your revenue cycle management data, right? So you want to be able to play ball with people who specialize in just those fields, and then that's where the confusion comes. So that's interesting. Yes. Changing gears on you. So I was reading over our show notes, and you said you do carpool. So I have a lot of kids, and so I can relate to carpool and all those kind of things. So how do you deal with work-life harmony? I know that's a big topic right now, and I know this is more for like a personal thing, but I would love to understand how you tackle that and how you balance work, having kids, and being there for your kids, but also, being an amazing business person at the same time.
That's a very tight tightrope that I balance. I said that a little bit wrong, but I'm sure y'all got it. My youngest daughter is 14. I have 2 children. I have a junior in college that plays golf for Loyola University in New Orleans. And my youngest daughter is also a golfer as well. So we spend a lot of time on the golf course. And I think that was
actually my next question. I saw that you were doing golf. You had golf in there a lot. So I was going to ask you what that meant exactly. So thanks for sharing that.
Yes. My husband chose to spend a lot of time with his daughters on the golf course while I did laundry on Sundays. And had some mommy peace and quiet time when they were young. They were about 2 when he started taking them to the golf course and teaching them how to play. Yes. So now one of them has a handicap of, I think, like point 0.9. My oldest daughter
Holy
does,
smokes.
and my youngest daughter is, I think, an 11 handicap right now. She is just about to
That's
start
really
being
good.
my
That's
husband.
really good. But .9 is
Yeah.
insane.
Yes. Yeah. Well, she better be a point 0.9. She's traveling with the college team, so she has to keep it pretty low. But it's. I think we all have a lot of mommy guilt whenever we work a lot and we're balancing a job, but my daughters look up to me as a role model because I have built a company. They saw me struggle through years of working in an office and going to work at 6 a.m. because we saw patients then, and working late and not being able to pick them up because, I was seeing patients at night too. And they saw me struggle, traveling from Wednesday to Saturday, seeing clients, and I was traveling, more than 40 weeks a year. And, I would call them and I would FaceTime and watch their softball games, and, I would miss things. But when I was here, I tried to be as present as possible, meaning, when I was in the golf cart, my husband would yell at me if I was on Facebook instead of watching them. So I would throw my phone down and try to make sure that they weren't seeing me on Facebook. But as they've grown older, they've told me that, they're very proud of what I've done. They're proud of the company that I've grown, and they want to see me succeed. And I think they are beginning to model their lives after the success that I've had. My daughter's a pre-dental student, so I'm excited to have her apply for dental school next year. And, if I can, grab a dentist out of this, and have my
Yeah.
daughter become a successful dentist out of what I've done, I feel like my life is really complete.
That's
And I
awesome.
feel like
Yeah.
I've done a great job.
It sounds like you've done a great job. And,
Thank
but
you.
the one thing that you said there was the mom guilt. And I feel like some people talk about it, but it's not talked about a lot of, that guilt of, being away from the kids. So if you
Hmm.
could, again, I know you just described the outcomes and you're getting the outcomes that you want, which is awesome. But for those listening that are younger, haven't had kids yet, or they're just having kids and they're in the dental industry, I think 52% of dentists are going to be women that are coming in right now,
That's
and they're
correct.
going
Hmm.
through all of this. What's one thing that you would go back and change and do a little bit differently now that you're a little bit older, a little bit wiser in this whole entrepreneurial mom journey?
So for my female dentists out there, I would say invest in a coach from the beginning. I don't care what it takes for you to get a coach. Reach out to someone who is smarter than you, who's been doing it longer than you. Invest in marketing because you should have an unlimited marketing budget. The more you spend into marketing, the more you're going to be profitable in your practice. And invest in a coach because a coach is going to guide you and they're going to get you to that point where you can invest in your family,
That's
because
really
the
good. I was wondering, I
family
was like, where's she
time,
going with this? So that's so good.
mhm,
Yeah. Cause
the
here's the
family
thing.
time is what you miss.
Mm,
But if you are stable, I'm sorry, Gary,
no,
if you're
go.
stable where you are in your practice, you are not going to be spinning your wheels trying to create all of the processes in order to make all of the cogs turn at the same time. And your practice is profitable and your practice is sailing on its own. You're going to have all of the answers at an earlier time in your career, and then you won't miss out on all of the things that I missed out on. Hence, you won't have as much mommy guilt.
Man, that is such a good answer. So I'm going to be super vulnerable with you and pretend like there's not going to be a bunch of people listening to this. So I early on I was scared of coaches for me personally as a business person because I thought that made me look weak, and I thought that they would see all my inefficiencies and all the stuff I didn't know, which was like all of it. Right? It was a hot mess
Yeah,
everywhere. So I thought I didn't want people to come in and look at my hot mess, and I didn't want to get help. What I figured out though, and I brought in several coaches that have helped me along the way, is that coaches are actually a time hack, and that's their job, is to clean up the messy stuff that I'm not good at. So these coaches come in and they're all segmented in these little niches, right? Whether it's a marketing
yes,
coach or an operation coach or a revenue cycle management coach or whatever it may be, they come in and they're experts in this narrow category that I'm not supposed to be good at. Right. And
that's
so
right.
that saved me so much time. And once I figured that out, it was just, I mean, the money is nothing because of the time that I'm saving, and I'm getting the way I always looked at it is I'm getting to my goal way faster. So instead of taking
Right.
5 years and maybe not in the right destination at the end, it's taking me 6 months, and I know I'm getting to the right destination because that coach helped me along the
Yes.
way. But what you're saying is you can build your business to the point where you have a little bit more freedom to be the mom that you want to be, if that's what you want to do.
Absolutely. And I don't think anyone should ever hesitate about hiring a coach because, if you hire the right coach, that money your return on investment should be tenfold
Oh yeah.
with
Yeah.
that coach easily.
Easily.
And,
Yeah.
that to me, it's a no brainer.
Yeah.
Because you're getting a higher return on your investment than you ever would with anything else, and we're much more stable than the stock market for
Oh,
sure.
100%. Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, no, the coaches is a total time hack. I really believe in all kinds of coaches for everything that you deal with. And whether the other thing that I've seen dental organizations do really well, and I love to do, is bringing in coaches for your team. So maybe you don't want
Mhm.
to deal with hygiene, so bring in a hygiene coach, or maybe you don't want to deal with marketing, so bring in a marketing coach, or a company that's
Absolutely.
really good at it. Like there's companies that are super niche to build out to be able to help you with that. So I think that's huge. Okay, changing gears on you. So give me
Yes.
something that right now, give me a story of a recent win that a client inside of their business where the light turned on for them and they said, okay, I get it now. And you saw a great return from that.
Okay. Super simple. This is so easy. I started working with a client back in April or so, and she had never worked with a coach before, and it was challenging to get her to come on board with me because I had all of these granular ideas, and they were just going to be so great, and I would lay them out, but it seemed like I was working alone for the most part. I would work with her team, and her team would come on board with me, and we had put things in place like scheduling, and she was working with eAssist, and the revenue cycle management was going great. eAssist and I were working together hand in hand to make certain that the team was starting to do things better in the office to make sure that the claims were being paid on time, and blah blah blah. However, we had some problems on the team with a hygienist, kind of standing.
A hygienist causing problems in an office for a dentist?
I don't want to say causing problems because that may not be entirely accurate, but she just wasn't as participatory as we would have liked for her to been. So it was just challenging, and it seemed like everybody was coming along except for one person. And finally, this week, I had the doctor. She called me and she was just frustrated. And she was just so frustrated. And I laughed. And she and I have a great relationship, I should say. We have, we have kept our relationship professional, but I'm such a very personal person that, we know each other's families, and I celebrate her kids, and things like that. So when she called and she was frustrated, I said, thank you for finally getting mad, because I have been like this from about the second week that we worked together, and I have presented you with problems and challenges and situations, and it just seemed like it was only my problem and your office manager's problem, and that we were going to have to deal with it, find a way to deal with it.
Mm,
And, now I feel like we're going to have the support from you to do what we need to do.
mm.
And you are the only person that can do what needs to happen here. And we couldn't get anything accomplished without you. So thank you for helping us. And so we created some strategic plans, and we're going to have some meetings and some directions and some, different things. And sometimes that's what it takes is, getting to the point where your doctor is so frustrated that they actually say, okay, now what do we do? Like, I've had it. Now what do we do? Okay, great. Thanks. The really cool part is, in her practice, we've been working together for a few months. The 6 months prior to us working together, she was averaging about $124,000 in monthly net production. Since we've been working together the last 3 months, which I consider anything over 3 months a trend, she has her average net production has jumped up to about $152,000 a month. And I would say the biggest jump has been this month. Last month she was at 141,000. This month she's scheduled to do 188,000. So to go from 129,000, 124,000 on average to about 188 this month.
Wow.
Without adding any other providers, without adding
Huge.
any other days of service or any other chairs.
It's life-changing.
That is life-changing for her.
It's really good. That's really good.
So,
okay, I'm gonna ask you a similar question, but on the flip side, what right now? Like, tell me a story of something that you're dealing with inside of your business, either with a client or something that that isn't working right with the client, and it's a big pain point that you're working through.
I have another client that these are two doctors who have come from Peru, who were doctors in Peru. And they had to go through dental school again when they came to the United States. And they've done so, and these are fantastic clinicians. However, they are challenged with finding the right team members. And so they have lost both of their business team members at the same time. They had a great resignation of both of their business team members. And so the husband is acting as the doctor in the practice, and the wife is acting as the business team member. And she is finding all of these mistakes from the inexperienced business team that she had previously. And I'm challenged because we were going to outsource this team, some of the things on the team. And then we decided to keep this, that we needed to hire someone in the practice to, because we lost both business team members. We can't have an empty desk up there, and we need to get the doctors both practicing in the back. So it's a complete challenge to balance, how do we get some of the things that an experienced team member should be doing? How do we get some of those things outsourced or teach the new person, what to do? And how do we even find that new person, the right person to begin with? And it is just such a challenge to find the right team members.
And
so it's been very challenging.
Yeah. And I think everybody's going through this. So this is obviously not unique to you or your clients. This is what everybody's experiencing. But one of the key things you said there was outsourcing. I think outsourcing is a great way of really understanding that you can outsource certain jobs and give bandwidth back to your team, back to your doctors, back to those that are crucial to success. What have you seen with outsourcing that can you tell me a story or an example of really outsourcing in a way that's been like a big win for the office?
Oh, absolutely. So outsourcing is probably one of my favorite things to do because I'm a very patient-centered coach. Being a clinician myself for the longest, I want to make certain that team members are taking care of the patients who are in the present time with them, and not making phone calls to patients who should have been scheduled for hygiene or have past due balances or things like that. So I want to make certain that we are outsourcing to the right people and getting all of those tasks cleared up. So my favorite thing to do is outsource with a company called Support DDS.
I love Support DDS.
Worked with, perfect. Support DDS, if you guys haven't heard about them, that they are just fantastic to work with, and they work with a lot of people in Zimbabwe, and just the quality of team members that they hire in Zimbabwe are just the highest level of quality team members, and they learn so quickly. And so I really like the fact that one team member is assigned to a practice, and that is your team member, and you can have them do whatever you want them to do. And so when I work with those team members in Zimbabwe, I work with them exclusively. I teach them what we want them to know. I write job descriptions for them. And, sometimes when I was working with my very first practice, we had a team of 3 team members that I worked with from Zimbabwe, and it was my own little group. I was responsible for them, and we did everything off site, and it was fantastic. So I love sending support DDS clients like that.
Yeah, they do a great job. We've had a couple of experiences where they were answering phones, and then our coaches have trained some of their support DDS staff on, let's get these phone conversions up, and they did a great job. It's a huge cost savings, and it's very interesting from an economical standpoint how, these jobs that you can't get here, they're being offshored if they can, and that's going to continue to happen. So I am totally with you on that one. All right, so what's something that I didn't bring up that I should have?
Gary, we talked about a lot.
We did. We covered a lot. We've been talking for 40 minutes already.
Wow, just 40 minutes? It doesn't seem like that. Wow, we talked about a whole lot. One thing that I think we need to talk about is what's going to happen in the economy in the future.
Yeah. Yep. Let's talk about that.
And I think that some of the things that, we're seeing I was talking with a couple of my colleagues earlier, and I just want to let everyone know that dentistry is stable. Our dental market is stable, even in tough economic times. There's 2 things that I want people to know. Dentists are still going to buy practices. So this is a great time for doctors. If you are thinking about retiring or getting out of dentistry, this is a great time to begin ramping up your practice if you haven't already, for a sale or an acquisition. And then also, I think that what's also important is our doctors who are still practicing out there and still have a lot of locations. We are going to enter a recession, and there's a couple of things that happen when we do that. Our teams are going to have to look at their internal processes, and they're going to have to find ways that they can still maintain the same level of production that they were maintaining prior to. So, 6 months ago, a year ago, things like that. So I want to give everyone listening a couple of ideas on ways that they can increase their case acceptance. Is that okay?
Yeah, do it. Let's do it.
Okay. So a couple of things. This is really big. Whenever we're presenting case acceptance, okay, so this is some recession type strategies that we have, okay? Some recession type strategies for case acceptance to make sure that we maintain our level. First thing, I would recommend that you present 2 treatment plans to patients, not just one. So if you are going to present, if you're used to presenting treatment plans with all of your information in one treatment plan and just overwhelming that patient, I'm not saying to, present just, want the next type appointment, but I'm saying, let's present what I'm really recommending for you now and label it as recommended.
So,
here's what
a lot of people, I've heard that called a single tooth approach, where you're taking one problem and you're taking just whatever the next thing up is if you could only fix one thing in the mouth, what is the next thing that has to be taken care of? Not all the work, but just that one thing. And your conversion rates go through the roof when you do that.
They do. I think if you want to really move your practice to that larger, case acceptance type practice, do this with the recommended treatment. Put the most needed recommended things like extractions or root canals, or a tooth that has a large filling in it that has cracks in it that needs to be crowned right now. All of those emergent processes, procedures, put those in that recommended treatment, and then label another one for later. So if we can do the crown on a tooth that needs to be root canaled or that has been root canaled, if we can do some fillings that are stable, okay, I'm saying stable, and doctors, you know what I'm talking about. If you can put off this dentistry for a year or so, just so this patient can get their finances in order so they can come back to you because they know it needs to happen later, that would be okay. And the patients would appreciate that. But I think it needs to come with the caveat that, hey, patients, this is what we're going to do. Here is what needs to happen immediately. This is what I'm recommending now. And then this is what I'm recommending once we can find an option that fits you financially, so you can come back and have the rest of this remaining treatment done. We don't want to put you in a financial burden right this second. that is helpful for patients. There are a lot of patients that are going through a financial crisis right now. And I know we have a lot of lending partners that dip down into those lower 500s with the credit scores. We're going to see a lot of people with credit scores that even go lower than that, but they still have treatment that needs to be done. So I know financing is not an option for everybody. So that's
but you know what?
the first
There's
tip.
some people that I've been working with that are doing financing down to $500 credit scores and up to like several $1,000s now. So the financing has seemed to open up a lot more. I know Care Credit's like more of like a paper, and I know a lot of dentists have kind of used that, but it only serves a very small niche of the market. So I love some of the new options that are coming out.
Some of them are great. And if they hang around, I think they'll be okay. They're converting, I think, from some of the other markets that are out there, maybe.
Yep.
So I'm a little cautious whenever I see that, because they don't have the longevity that Care Credit has in our industry.
Why does that worry you? So what happens? Let's say that you work with, I can think of several companies that are newer on the scene, and they come in and they finance our patients, and we get a check up front, right, from those finances, and so I'm getting paid as the dentist. What's the downside if they end up falling apart financially?
The downside isn't to the doctor. The downside is going to be from them getting more lending from their banks, because patients they're lending to so many patients that have bad credit.
Got it. Okay.
That the patients are going to default.
So they might they might dry up and stop being able to lend. So take advantage while you can, to maybe open up those opportunities, but realize that it might not be around if the economy continues to get tighter. Got it.
Yeah. So, the second thing that we have to do in a recession is we have to uncover our patient objections. So our listening skills have to increase, and we have to get better at making certain that we identify what's really stopping this patient from going through a treatment. That's a big thing. So if we can do that with our patients, if we can just sit down and have an open-ended conversation with our patient, that's going to help. And then, we have to make certain that we're actually going all the way with our patients, meaning that we're finding time to schedule those patients and see them at their convenience, making it convenient and affordable for them. So let's just go all the way with those patients and meet them where they are.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a great topic. And definitely the economy is going to get tighter. One thing I would say that would worry me too as the economy gets tighter is if I didn't have a handle on my marketing. And obviously I do marketing, so I'm very biased of this conversation. But where I would be nervous, whether you use us or not, is if I didn't have a handle from if I can get more new patients on a predictable schedule. I had an office that actually reached out to me, very, very big office, and they're down in the South. They probably have 20, 30 locations. They might even had 40. I only saw some of their practices, and they had a very specific marketing model that has worked for them for a long time. Well, it dried up overnight, and they didn't have a digital strategy, and they put so much money into the properties and building out these de novos that now they're like, what are we going to do? And there's no easy fix. So you need to have a digital strategy that you can scale, meaning how much it costs right now to produce a lead, how much it costs to drive a patient in through the doors, and then you can ratchet that up or ratchet it down based on what the economy is doing, based on patients buying more, buying less, whatever it may be. But if you get caught and the market turns and all of a sudden your patients start buying 30% less dentistry, and you have no way to market digitally predictably, then you're trapped, and you're going to end up having 3 months. And that's if you pick the right company to come and fix it. But you're going to have 2 or 3 months there. And what happens if you have a bad quarter, that means that year's blown. Like you're just going to break even for the year. You kind of missed the mark on the whole year. So having that in a row, your ducks in a row on that front, while you have stability, I think is really key.
It's if you start with marketing when you're at that point, it's way too late.
Yes.
So you have to get started with marketing when you think you don't have to market.
Exactly.
So you start understanding your KPIs and what it takes to keep you where you are. and increase, like you said, when you need to increase and ramp up, because patients are almost seasonal sometimes.
Yeah.
And you have to make certain that you understand the marketing that attracts them, plus also what the seasons are, where depending on the locations across the country. I'm sure you've seen different seasons
Yep.
across the country. I have too. And it's almost like you can predict it. And sometimes I can go into a different state or so, and I'm say, okay, look, these patients right here, you're about to lose all these patients in North Dakota because they don't come out between December and February.
Yep.
Or it's harvest in Iowa, and we're about to lose all of these new patients.
Yep.
So we have to do this,
Yeah.
and those are hard things for a dentist to learn on their own. But when you work with an expert, we already know the secrets.
Yeah.
And it's easy for us to share with those doctors. So
that's so good. I love this. This has been a great conversation. I know one topic that we didn't get to and we didn't have time, but we're going to talk about KPI. So I would like to bring you back on in the future and just do a whole episode. We could probably talk for 2 hours about KPIs and what KPIs you're measuring and all those kind of things. But for today, why don't you share with us, if someone says, hey, I want to reach out, I want to learn more about what you're doing and how you can help my practice, how do they get a hold of you?
It's so simple. Just go to the internet, go to my website. It's DSO-Success.com. There's a contact me page. There's my phone number is plastered all over it. You can find me on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. If you can't find me, you're not looking very hard. So just contact me. My name is Danya Montoya. And if you Google me, you're going to find some golf pictures as well. So you can be looking for that too.
Well, thanks
Gary,
so much.
I want to thank you.
Oh yeah,
thank
this has been
so
fun.
Much.
Yeah, I love your perspective. I love what you're doing. And I definitely think there's a ton of opportunities for people that you can help out there. So thank you so much for coming on today.
It has been a pleasure. And, I appreciate what you're doing out there. You're helping so many entrepreneurs, so many doctors, and not only with their marketing, but with what they're doing in business. And you're making a big difference.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Doing.
Thank you so much.
It's great. All right.